The idea for this video comes from F1 Fanatics. They're doing a video on predictions at the moment for 2021, which got me thinking about the Alfa Romeo seat. Currently it's likely there's a safe seat almost for a Ferrari young driver. In F2 currently there's 5 drivers who could be stepping up. Most people's money seems to be going on Mick Schumacher being the guy who's going to get into it. But it's worth taking a look at the junior careers of some of the others. So I'm going to go through them and see what conclusions we might come to at the end of it. So I say 5 drivers, but I'm going to rule one of them out before I even start on this video, and that is Giuliano Alessi. When he's been leading from the front and reverse grid rolls, he's shown he has the pace to be able to stay there. But he doesn't get to the front often enough, and his results are unlikely to see him winning the title, which is basically what he'd need to do, I think, to turn the idea of him around so that he might get into the F1 seat. So I'm going to remove him at this point. With the other 4, the starting point has to be 2016. Marcus Armstrong at this point was finishing his karting career. He was experimenting a little bit and starting to deal with single-seaters. He had, I think it was 2 races in British F3, 2 races in Formula Renault. Not necessarily any results to speak of exactly, but then it was just a toe in the water. You know, testing it out, seeing how it went, how it felt, thinking about where he might want to go for the following year. So the important part was just getting comfortable in the car and the environment and working out what he wanted to do. Marcus was the first of the 4 I'm highlighting to be selected for the Ferrari Driver Academy in November of 2016. Robert Schwartzman, by contrast, had spent a couple of years floating around single-seaters. He had decent backing by SMP at this point, even though he wasn't yet a Ferrari Academy guy. This is where I first met him. It was at Blancpain in 2016 when he was driving in Formula Renault NEC supporting Blancpain series at Silverstone. He was teammates that year at Joseph Kaufman Racing with Jehan Daravala and a certain Lando Norris, who was also a rookie. Robert had finished 6th overall in NEC and 8th in the Euro Cup that year, which was decent results for a guy in his first season in the category. It's always a learning curve as you step up. He achieved his goal of showing he had potential. Meanwhile, in ADAC F4 and Italian F4, a certain Mick Schumacher was in his second season. He would eventually finish ADAC F4 runner-up to Joey Mawson, and Italian F4 runner-up to Marcus Siebert. In MRF Challenge, he'd end up finishing 3rd. So no titles that season, but definite sign of improvement and the potential to go on and achieve greater things. Callum Isler arguably had the hardest run into the Academy start. He was originally part of the Red Bull Academy, and instead of putting them in F4 or even British F3 or Formula Renault, something like that, they dropped him straight into the FIA Euro Formula 3. Which he'd compete in for a number of years, but arguably wasn't ready and didn't have the time to build up points, super license points, experience in some of the lower categories that the other drivers had. And as we'll see later when we look at the numbers of wins and title positions and stuff, that hurt him. In 2016, he was racing for Amersport Racing and would go on to finish 6th in the championship that year, having recorded his first win. 2017 came in, new opportunities for our drivers to impress. Marcus Armstrong first up, started the year doing Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand, took 3 wins, totaling finishing 4th in the championship in the end. It was, again, in terms of speed, absolutely on the pace, just struggling a little bit with consistency. He had followed that up by doing the ADAC F4 and Italian F4 championships that year. His first years in them, he finished 2nd to Yuri Vips in ADAC F4 and won the Italian Formula 4 series, which is impressive going in first year at that level. For 2017, Robert would stay racing in Formula Renault, but he switched teams to the RAce GP team, who were the benchmark team at that point. The step up in performance was noticeable as he picked up several wins during that season on his way to finishing third behind Sasha Fennestrad and Will Palmer. Decent performances, solid and consistent. At the end of the season, it just fell away from him a little bit though. But as well as Fennestrad and Palmer, you also had the likes of Alex Peroni, Max Deforny, and rookies including Yi Yiffy, Max Futrell, Dan Ticktum, and Richard Verschoor. So no shortage of quality on that grid. No shortage of talent in European Formula 3 either, as Callum faced off against Mick Schumacher, Guan Yu Zhao, Maximilian Gunther, and that was just the Prema team. As well as that, you had the likes of Joel Eriksson, Pedro Piquet, Harrison Newey, Joey Mawson, Jake Hughes, Nikita Mazepin, Jehan Daruvala, Ferdinand Habsburg, and the eventual series winner Lando Norris. To start with, Callum had looked good. He'd looked one of the quickest people out there. Lots of poles, several race wins that year as well, but consistency let him down. Too many DNFs cost him, and he finished the 4th place in the title in the end. At the end of 2017, both Callum and Robert would be confirmed as drivers for the Ferrari Driver Academy. For Mick, the step up in class meant back to the drawing board again. With such a highly talented grid and taking his time, getting used to the car, learning his way around the series, he wasn't the most competitive person that year. Reasonably in the midfield, but for the lowest of the Prema drivers. The thing with Mick and what we perhaps have to take into account is it's very hard to imagine what must have been going on in his home life at that point, because with the fallout of what had happened regarding his father, and then trying to do racing. I'm not a racing driver, I'm a normal person. I don't quite know how you manage to balance them things out. The pressure of that name, those M. Schumacher on the side of the car. He's gone about his racing in a very mature, grown up. He's taken his time where he's needed to learn the series and to race them very methodically, with success. At the start of 2018, it was the Toyota Racing Series for both Marcus Armstrong and Robert. Initially, Marcus was the person to beat. It looked like a complete fight between him and Richard Verschoor for the title. But Robert, with consistency, being the only person in all rounds to score in the top 5, took it in the final round. Moving on from there was then to F3 for both of them, with teammates Mick Schumacher at Prema. Robert's season, a little bit like the Toyota Racing Series, had been one of learning and building and consistency. Starting off the season just learning everything he could about the car and how to get the best performance out of it. By midway through the season he was a regular front runner and podium winner and took several races on the way to being top rookie for that year, beating Yuri Vips and Marcus in the process. Marcus, a little bit like with the Toyota Racing Series, had almost the reverse of Robert's season. Started off looking decently strong, took a win earlier on, at one point looked like he was going to be fighting for the main championship, but about Silverstone time it started to become unravelled and both Mick and Robert just seemed to get to grips with the package a lot better than Marcus did towards the end of the season, and his results started tailing off a little bit, but still looked impressive and finished 5th overall and 3rd in the Rookie Championship, which in the field we have in Euro F3, there was no shortage of talent in it again, so it was still a very impressive result. If I talk about Robert's year being a building year, Mick's was even more strange. Up until Spa he was running at 12th in the championship, and then he got his first win, and from then on, at least once every race weekend he was winning right up until the last round, I think taking 8 wins in total across that season. There's been a lot of debate about what happened there as to where this increased performance came from, but it could just be he found a setup he liked. I'm not going to read too much into that. That's conversation for other people to have. but he won the title, which took it to 2 second places, a third, and a victory in his career, which is highly respectable. For Callum, it was a strange season. He moved over to GP3 in the championship-winning ART team, and on paper looked all set ready to take his first championship. Going into Silverstone, he was leading the F3 title from his rivals Anton Hubert and Nikita Mazepin. By the end of the year, it had all unravelled, and he'd ended up finishing the title fight in third place. Anton Hubert, who won it that year, was a deserved winner. Callum, the same as with the F3, has showed great bursts of pace and race-winning speed, but the consistency not currently there. 2019 saw Mick and Callum racing in Formula 2, and Robert and Marcus making the step up to F3. Mick by this point had joined the Ferrari Driver Academy and had done testing for the Formula 1 team. He started the F2 season driving for Prema, looking and having bursts of speed, some aggressive driving, arguably got involved in some incidents they would have been better off staying out of, and did suffer bad luck as well. There were some great moments and some great shots of speed cutting through the field and what have you, but all too often he was the quickest guy, running in about 17th place because there'd been an incident earlier on in the race. Lots of promise there, but eventually finished the season in 12th place. But first season in a new series was always a learning curve for him, and next year, in 2020, he could go on to win the title. While Mick was at Prema, Callum was at Charouse. Started the season a little bit tentatively, just getting used to the car, the team. Eventually, as the season progressed, he'd be fighting it out for pole positions and for podiums, and would eventually finish the season 11th, looking one of the top rookies. It was encouraging signs for Callum. Marcus spent a lot of the season looking like he could potentially be the quickest guy in F3, but a number of incidents, sometimes bad luck with qualifying, and when he went out, sometimes put him out of position. He had some amazing and very exciting drives through the field, but the problem was it was because he'd ended up starting out of position in the first place. But he would eventually finish second in the championship to his teammate Robert Schwartzman. But Marcus, as always, showed that the speed was there. When he was in a position to take wins, he did so. He would be very much a threat to a championship at ART next year if they can give him a car that will do the job and he manages to keep out of trouble. It kind of goes without saying I'm a big fan of Marcus. Robert went about the F3 campaign in the style that we've kind of become accustomed to from him now. Having enough pace to put him at the front of the field, consistent results, being there again and again and again when it counted, and always picking up and maximising every opportunity that came to him. He won the title of the F3 on merit and will be one to watch at Prema in the 2020 season. Great work by him. Looking at the stats and you put them together, it's very hard to actually pick between any of them. They've all got a similar number of starts, and while Callum clearly has less wins than the others, he's had a harder run, arguably, in the championships he took part in. While Callum and Mick clearly have a year's more experience in Formula 2 than the younger teammates, both Marcus and Robert have shown that given the chance, they can take titles, they can fight for titles, they'll definitely be able to fight for wins, and at Prema and ART next year, they'll definitely be threats. So I personally believe that Alfa Romeo is, looking at it, there's no reason to assume that any of the four of them could possibly get into the Alfa Romeo seat. It's not currently, there's no one person who I think has enough of an advantage over the others, although it lays with Mick arguably just because of the surname, but any of them would be good in that car. Anyway everyone, thank you for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it and it was vaguely informative. Obviously, if you want to watch any good content, can I suggest you try F1 Fanatics, F1 Debate Show, F1/E Reviews, Mark Priestley, Aldas, Shane Baird, Josh Ravel, F1 Show, Late Breaking, Kids Love F1, Raz on F1, Aidan Millward, Jonty's Corner, and Tomo F1.